time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
the struggle as to strike.
The Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.
Hello and welcome to everyone who are joining us here today on Global Morning. As always, it's a huge delight knowing you have resolved to spend a part of your morning with us here on the program. I am Uyi Agmofwebe. Of course, you know it's a duo on Global Morning, and then there is this very amiable and delectable lady on the program.
Oh my goodness, all this accolade for me. Good morning to each and every one of you out there. Good morning, Uyagbomofwegbe. And of course, I am Jumai Manson, and it's great to be on the program. Good morning, TGIF.
Right.
Thank God it's Friday.
You know, we all look forward to this because, of course, great weekends begin on a Friday, and we've put ours on the road. It's good that we're doing that with you this weekend, and we hope to do that with you for many more weekends to come. But this is also an opportunity to just do a bit of reflection on some of the big happenings across the country and beyond for this week. I mean, we've had several conversations across all of our programs, including on Global Morning, many of them having to do with public interests and all of that. So at this point, we understand so much is happening with regards to, excuse me, budget, defense, and some heads of agencies of government and even academic institutions not showing up to defend their budgets and all of that. But maybe that is also an opportunity to discuss public interests in the real sense of that term. Because whether you like it or not, once you make Jumai Manson your commissioner, your minister, or you even elect her as your legislator, it means she fundamentally should understand that
yes, I do.
She owes, though she represents a responsibility to deliver the goods, as they say, for them. But in the case of Nigeria, it appears we are not even close to being out of the woods. We're still having the conversation about whether or not public officers or public, office holders understand the weights of responsibility on their shoulders.
Not just the weight, I think understanding the office and what it entails. If we go back to the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, we saw what happened with the women who were there.
I love how you put it, the women.
The individuals who were there, Princess, and of course, you know what happened in that office. And for me, I felt, for as much as I'm a woman, but let the needful and the right thing be said.
What is right is right, what is wrong is wrong.
What is right is right, what is wrong is wrong. I feel some public holders do not understand what the office entails, and that is why you go outside your reach to do what your office doesn't have that capacity to hold or what it entails. So I think we have a long way to go when it comes to understanding. If you're in a particular office, understand what the weight is on that office, the angle in which you're to focus on. I think once we do not deviate from that, we're on track. But I think we have a long way to go when it comes to that, because everyone just wants to bump into one another, the offices and all of that, and individuals, they're just there because of some individuals, not all, what they can get. They don't care whether I'm representing you or not. Like I always say, when we have that fear in our hearts that, hey, I am there, I am a mouthpiece, individuals put me in that office because of the trust they have for me and because they know that I have the capacity, and of course professionalism is key when it comes to delivering. I am there. Once we understand that and we do not have our own interests at heart, it's good to have your interest at heart, but the interest of the people should overweigh that interest in which you have, because you are a representative of these individuals. You're a public servant. So once we understand that, I think we're good to go, and it just seals the deal. I think we move forward from that.
I think that part of seals the deal is very apt and, excuse me, as well as instructive, because we can't continue to see public office as an avenue to hustle.
Exactly.
You know, it's a bit embarrassing, and maybe I should stretch it further by saying it's shameful, all right, when you hear people say things like, well, The only way in Nigeria you can go to bed a broke man and wake up a multimillionaire or even a billionaire is by seeking public office.
True.
Either by way of appointment or election. And when you think about it from that standpoint, it just explains the apparent reason you have so much of mafiosos in public office.
True.
Where people abuse their office, they exploit it to the very extreme. And if you don't understand what we're saying on the program this morning, you want to look at the stack of cases that the EFCC has had to pursue in the last 2 decades and see how much people have had to, for whatever reasons, abuse public offices in this country. But let's be clear, the opportunity to hold public office is one to serve, all right, and to make a difference for the better. It's not to exploit and for self-aggrandizement, right? We've seen people who otherwise were civil society leaders, they were frontline, players and stakeholders when it comes to anti-corruption, anti-corruption, what have you. But once they snapped their fingers and got public office,
that was it.
Jumai couldn't drink water and drop coke.
Really, just me. I think that's the trend. When you see individuals who come all out to fight and tell you we're anti-corruption and
anti-graft crusader.
Exactly, forefront. And it happens in our country. We see that a lot. And immediately you get hold of or you're appointed or elected in a public office, the next thing the dice is turned to another direction, and you wonder what is actually going on. And some public hold, I say some because there are some who are upright, there are some who believe that I am there because God has ordained it for me to be here, and of course I have a role to play. I have, there's something I have to accomplish here. It's very important that I am the voice of the I should touch lives. Very important. That's why I say some, because all do not actually go under this umbrella. So, and at the same time, like we said, people who are that fight corruption and all of that, once they get into public office, they just concentrate on themselves and their family members alone. We see them electing family members, cousins, giving some appointments that you just wonder what is going on here. But unfortunately, this is where we find ourselves. They say there is no law, but unfortunately there is. So when according to E, once it catch up with you, then you know that there is actually law in this country. But at the same time, public holders have a lot to do when it comes to representation.
Right.
We have a lot to do when it comes to representing the sector. Whatever you are doing at that point, you have a lot to do to make an impact. You have a lot to do to make a difference. You have a lot to do to bring succor to individuals. It's very important that we understand that. I think once we understand that, we'll have peace of mind. So we can, according to we drink water and drop the cup peacefully, right?
Right. You can't say that enough, quite frankly. But you see, in all of this, the point is that there's no better time for us to begin to review all of these issues, right? Where we understand that when you come into public office, no matter the means by which you come, you've got to have this understanding, very fundamental, that there needs to be accountability.
True.
You've got to show probity. All right. There has to be fiscal responsibility, because that's where the issue is. There's a former Director General Executive Secretary, I should say, of the National Health Insurance Scheme, who is now being held by the EFCC. Now, we're not going into all those details because the case is in court already. But one of the highlights of the case from the allegations leveled against him, we said allegations leveled against him by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, is that he abused office by appointing relatives. Now, Global Television has not done an investigative work to confirm all of these facts. But again, we established that these are the allegations that the anti-graft agency is leveling against this gentleman. But the highlight, quite frankly, is the fact that when you abuse public office, there are implications for you and for society.
True.
All right. Look at the cases, for example, Juma for a second, of people who have been held to accounts. In what we now call the civilized world, whether it's the US or across Europe, even in Asia, starting with China, for example, you realize that in most cases, it's not even about whether you stole money, whether you misappropriated public funds or taxpayers' money, as we call it, or whether you inflated contract sum. It's even about the fact that Juma and I went to the same school, so we're friends. Went into NYC together, we're still friends. Now she is minister, she appoints me or she gives me contracts. For no other reason other than that we've been friends. In many climes, and as ought to be the case in Nigeria, it's an aberration. all right, you're committing an infraction.
Yes, you
But
have.
people will argue and say, no, she didn't steal money. Well, she just helped a friend. She just got a friend a job, that sort of thing. I was in a place one time, many years ago. I was a younger boy, and a former local government chairman stood up on a Sunday morning, and there was this conversation around abuse of public office. And he said, look, most times you can't blame any Nigerians because there's pressure. And he cited himself. This was an elderly man, all grade at this point. You know, he said he was a local government chairman. And in that state where he was a local government chairman, his own local government was the most financially robust, of course, in terms of IGR and all of that. However, there was a challenge. He said once he got into office, this was in the early 90s, once he got into office, then you see a friend from way back would come and say, you see, this is my daughter, she just graduated, she doesn't have a job, what do we do? This is my son, he needs this and that. My wife has to undergo surgery, we don't have the money. He said one day he sat down and he asked himself, does the local government council create jobs? I mean, this is him reflecting all by himself. Can we really provide jobs for these teeming youths who do not have opportunities? The answer was very clear. No, you can't. You don't have the capacity unless you want to lie to yourself.
No, you don't.
However, there was a pressure. You know, let's not run too far from ourselves, Jumai. Nigeria is a communal society.
Yes.
So you have your cousin. In fact, it's only in Nigeria you hear second, third, fourth cousins. It's only in Nigeria you hear cousin brother and cousin sister.
Very true.
Because we are very communal. It's only in Nigeria that your cousin is your brother. Your cousin is your sister. Right? And people don't say anything wrong in that. It's only in Nigeria that somebody who is not even from your city is your uncle.
Exactly.
Is your auntie. And is the custom that will build over time. So there's that communal element that you can't pretend about.
Very true.
However, it has also been one of the fundamental factors that fuel nepotism. And once there is nepotism and it becomes an established phenomenon, time will fail us to talk about the consequences on this program.
Yes, time will definitely fail us to talk about it. But you know what? We're going to go on a very quick break. And next we'll have the newspaper review. Do not go anywhere. It's Global Morning on Global Television. Stay tuned. You're welcome back, and it's Global Morning on Global Television. At about this time, it's a newspaper review, and we'll be starting with the first paper, which is the Punch newspaper. And beside the nameplate of the Punch newspaper, here it says domestic short for NNPC marketers import 633 milliliters of fuel. And you can find that read on page 19 of the Punch newspaper. And then, of course, there's 67 dead as plane helicopter collide mid-air in United States. You can find that on page 3 of the Punch. And below that nameplate says FBN Holdings earning rise by 113% to 3.3 trillion naira. And here the star story there is the PDP crisis, and stakeholders demand Wike Bauchi governor truce as governors meet today. And to get more info on that, you can find that read on page 2 of the Punch. And the writer there says Fubara's camp warns Damagun kicked out as chairman. Opposition governors converge on Asaba. And then still on the Punch, it said South Africa, Rwanda clash over DR Congo conflict. And at the foot of the Punch newspaper, it says APC PDP differ over Amechi's power drunk politicians comment. And you can find that read on page 2 of the Punch. Herdmen kill 5 laborers on Ondo farm. You can find that read on page 4. Lagos Assembly insists Abasa's removal legal as DSS grills lawmakers. And you can find that read on page 28. And here it says banks complied with court ruling on expert Mareva order GHL. You can find that read on page 25 on the Punch newspaper. Now, the story that caught my eye, of course, the star story, but one that hits badly is the herdsmen kill 5 laborers on Ondo farm. And we usually think it happens just in the north, but now this has actually spread to parts of the north, the east, the west, and all of that. It's just unfortunate that we keep going back and forth when it comes to herdsmen, farmers, laborers. Without the farmers, famine will be knocking very closely on doors. So do you think we have a long way to go to curb this particular menace? Because people were reluctant. You felt, well, it's just the northeast that things are happening. When you hear of ISWAP, Boko Haram, and all of that, and now we hear herdsmen being, being attacked when it comes to issues like farmers being attacked by herdsmen. When it comes to issues like this, it's just unfortunate that this is where we are. How long? This is prolonging for how long? When is this going to be curbed or nipped in the bud, like I always say? At about this point, security agents are at their top game, but is it good enough? Have they done enough when it comes to areas? Now, Ondo, before you know it, of course we know it has already spread in some parts, but it's just unfortunate that this is where we are.
It's quite concerning, Jumai, unless, of course, you just want to play the ostrich about this issue. It's been a while coming. Now that we're talking Ondo, for example, Olufalaye, one time a minister in this country, one time a presidential candidate. As a matter of fact, he ran against former President Olusegun Obasanjo.
Yes, he did.
Back in the day. Was also attacked on his farm some years ago. I mean, this was like many years ago. Today, all of these issues have apparently escalated. We're talking Ondo now, we're talking the southwestern part of the country. It's not even anywhere near the north. So anybody who still thinks, well, this is a northern problem, has a different thing coming, because it has gone beyond the regional issue. It's now a national security concern. And to that extent, it means that the least we can do is to, again, be sincere enough to ask ourselves, are we doing enough? That in itself naturally raises another question of how do you define enough? Some persons have said, well, the military is overwhelmed, they can't do more than they're already doing. This is not a matter of being overwhelmed anymore. It's a matter of us not being sincere with ourselves. People have said, look, we know those who are behind all of this. But the question is, we have the balls, we have the willpower, we have the political will, as they say, to nip all of this in the bud. Now, let's be clear, Ondo shares border with Edo.
Very true.
Ondo shares border with Ekiti. Now, there was a time before now, I mean, just before this recent, if you like, this string of incidents, we had also heard that there had been attacks coming from Kogi all the way through Kaba, coming through Okene. Again, Okene shares boundary with Akoko Edo local government, which is in Edo State. So once you're driving through, or you're going by road all the way from Abuja, you're using Kogi, obviously. By the time you're done with Okene, the next point is Okbela. Okbela is a boundary town between Edo and Kogi, which means that this establishes the fact that for those who still feel is a northern problem, they have another thing coming.
True.
Let's add to that one of the many implications, which is food insecurity. In June, that was barely a month after President Bola Tinubu took office, the federal government declared state of emergency on food insecurity. But today, have we recorded any success on that front? The answer is obvious. That is you now adding the challenge of insecurity. Go to Benue, people can't go to farm anymore. I mean, I grew up to know Benue as
the food basket of the nation.
Today, does that appellation still hold valid? Okay, let's hold our breath for a second.
Let's hold our breath for a second. All right, of course, that's basically the headlines on the Punch newspaper. Just go out and get yourself a copy to be well inclined on the news making rounds. And then will you be taking us through the next paper, right?
Right, and now we have the Guardian, a newspaper for you. As always, the Guardian has quite a number of headlines this morning. Let's bring you some of those real quick. Yes, the Guardian coming up. Then we'll start with the star story, as we always call it here on the program. It has a kicker with it. It says Mission 300 by 2030. Optimism as West African cities get $50 billion lifeline fresh bid for electricity. You can find details for that read on Big Story pages 4 and 5. Well, the Guardian has beautifully laid out infographics on its front page this morning, so that will give you very vivid insights into what this Big Story is about. All right, we take it down a notch. Let's see what it tells us here. Bottom left of the front page of the Guardian today, 17 contractors received 2.4 billion naira, failed to execute projects, reports reveals. That story, that headline has a picture of Minister of Works David Umahi. FG unveils $23.2 billion energy compacts targets for $15.5 billion private investment. Well, we need to find a way to bring all of these targets to fruition so there can be meaningful impact on the lives of the Nigerian. And then we have a headline here with a picture of former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, who is now a key actor in the PDP internal conflict. Atiku faults Tinubu's harassment as Amechi warns of Parkling. Tax reform bills, that's a kicker for you. Lamido Galadima reopen anti-North rhetoric with inheritance tax. Tax reform bills, Lamido Galadima reopen anti-North rhetoric with inheritance tax. Cardoso says Naira reverting to true value as confidence returns. Cardoso says Naira reverting to true value as confidence returns. Just yesterday, there was news that the CBN governor believes that, well, inflation numbers would have hit something in the neighborhood of 4 to 1.8%, if not for the critical and quick interventions that the regulatory bank has been pursuing these last few months. All right, that is left for experts to look at and then reach a conclusion. At the very foot of the front page of the Guardian this morning, it says Appeal Court affirms IPOB's proscription on ESN's 4th anniversary. So the implication is the indigenous people of Biafra remains a proscribed group, and that is according to the affirmation of the Appeal Court. So let's see what happens. Will the IPOB move things a notch higher to the Supreme Court? We wait to see that for you. Jumai has the next headline.
And yes, I do. I have the next paper, which is the New Telegraph. And of course, we have a picture story there with our President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and of course, the Canadian Commissioner to Nigeria, of course, in Aso Villa there. And here the Star Story says, Abdul Salami, I am proud my government birthed Nigerians democracy. And to wonder, if you're wondering what that entails, well, you have to flip over to page 4 of the New Telegraph for you to be well informed. Now, above the nameplate of the New Telegraph, it says, tax no respite as federal government sets 25.2 trillion naira target for 2025. And there says a picture there, and it says Shatima, women will lead Africa's $29 trillion economic transformation. And you can find that on page 2 of the New Telegraph. And here, APGA to Atiku prove APC's buying over opposition parties with 50 million naira. And you can find that read on page 4. Immigration intercepts 21 minors being taken out of Nigeria. And you can find that read on page 27 of the New Telegraph. And below the foot of the New Telegraph, it says, speakership crisis, DSS releases 2 Lagos lawmakers after interrogation. And you can find that read on page 38 and yes of the New Telegraph. Budget, NCC targets 272.44 billion naira revenue in 2025. And you can find that read on page 28. Please go out and get yourself a copy of the New Telegraph to be well informed on the issues making rounds. Over to you.
All right, so let's see what more we have this morning for you from the other papers. This time we're going to the Nigerian Tribune real quick. Let's see what has got for us. All right, on the front page of the Tribune, we'll begin with the star headline. It says, Presidency El Rufai trade words over governor's opposition. That story in itself, the headline is accompanied by 3 riders. Be ready to defend your vote, Amici tells Nigerians, says politicians kill, maim to remain in power. We owe survival of our democracy to people's resilience. Abdul Salami, one man who is now taking credit for being the precursor, so to say, to return to democracy.
He's not right. He's not wrong.
If you have it flaunted.
Exactly. If you have it flaunted.
All right, let's turn to the left-hand corner of the front page of the Nigerian Tribune here. Banks comply with court ruling lifting ex parte Mareva order against GHL. Appeal courts affirms order proscribing IPOB as terrorist group. Immigration intercepts 21 minors illegally taken out of Nigeria. Find those details on page 14. Owa Igbajo, court nullifies Adeliki's executive order on Famodun's removal. Details await you on page 25. FIRS exceeded 2024 revenue targets, collected 21.6 trillion naira, says Adedeji. That's accredited to the executive chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, Zacchaeus Adedeji. By 2 riders with that headline, agency gets 25.2 trillion naira target for 2025. FIRS most important agency now, finance minister, of course, he who pays the piper. Labour proposes 5% increase, gears up for February for protests over telecom tariff hike. There's a protest being proposed now by the Nigeria Labour Congress. Of course, we know ultimately it's going to be just beyond the NLC. It's going to be the organized labour, as they call it. They say the idea is to see that this 50% tariff hike approved by the NCC is reversed. But then the challenge with that is we have had series of arguments as to the necessity, so to speak, for this tariff hike. The NCC also, I should say, the NLC also has its own argument. It says Nigerians are already dealing with humongous hardship.
Yes.
So why do you add a layer of challenge by increasing what they pay for calls, for texting, and for accessing the internet? So it's going to be such that we expect that at a point the regulatory authorities, the telecoms operators, and the leadership of the labor will have to find themselves a seat at the same table and have this conversation, because it has to be such that nobody has to unnecessarily suffer for the other. But how do you do that? Well, we hope this strike is averted. That is already scheduled for the 4th of next month, which is, of course, on Tuesday. Last but not least, DSS grills Lagos lawmakers over Obasa's removal. Lawmakers released after hours of interrogation. Well, Obasa has continually maintained that he was illegally removed. All right, that his removal was, didn't follow due process. But as they say, where do you argue this matter? Maybe in court. In the meantime, that's all we have for you this morning from the Nigerian Tribune.
And then next is the Blueprint newspaper, and above the nameplate of the Blueprint it says, banks comply with court ruling lifting ex parte Mareva order against GHL. Of course, that's the story making rounds. We've read it on all other papers, and of course it's something that's important. We should be informed on that. And here it says, Serkin Yakin Zao Rawan Yahaya slums dies at public function. And we can see that on you can get that read on page 6. And you've been hearing of cases of people slumming, falling down, and all that. It's that we don't take actually when it comes to our health. Basically, sometimes it's due to stress.
Right.
And I always say, as Nigerians, we don't go for the regular checkup. We just feel all is well, all is good. We can rough it out. You cannot rough it out when it comes to health. One needs to be very careful. Please go out, check your BP, check every other thing, that your vitals. It's very important that we do that to avoid all of these issues. But well, God knows best, basically. And on the business news, it says Cardoso, our reforms yielding significant results. When you hear things like that, but is it reflecting though? We hear that there are positive results giving us hopes, but are we seeing it? That's the thing. Nigerians,
is it rubbing off?
Is it rubbing off? Basically, is it really rubbing off? We know positive results. You see it, but as a Nigerian individuals, the masses, they don't really see what you're talking about. They only feel that once I go to the market and I cannot, the things I used to buy at 100 naira, now I buy it at 500 naira. That's a problem. That's no positive impact there. So we need it to rub off on us. It's very important. Rub on us, basically. And here it says, Napoli rejects Galatasaray offer for Osimhen. And you can find that on page 32. And the Star Story says, despite our challenges, no substitute for civil rule, in the voice of Abdulsalami Abubakar. And the rider there says, 100 year enough to evolve formidable democratic pillars. We solely need to rid ourselves of mutual suspicion. And here it says, IPAC, INEC collaboration yielding results, Yakubu. And it's on the Blueprint, FIRS sets 25.2 trillion revenue target for 2025. And in the voice of E at the corner of the Blueprint says, women to lead Africa's $29 trillion economic transformation agenda, and that's in the voice of Shetima. And just go out and get yourself a copy of the Blueprint newspaper to be well informed on the news, or will I say happenings making round, to be well informed on this particular issues. And over to you, Uwe.
All right, let's look at one more paper this morning. Daily Trust newspaper is our next port of call. We begin with the 3 headlines just immediately beneath the name masts for you. Akonde, how I convinced Tinubu to run for president. That's Chief Bisi Akonde, former governor of Osun State, there talking, who also doubles as the national leader of the All Progressives Congress. But this is interesting because we know in the heats and the build-up to the 2023 general election, during the campaign, the president, then the candidate of the APCD, should say the aspirants, because he hadn't gotten the ticket just yet, had said that he had taken 20 years to plan his way into the presidency, which is like 2 decades. That's quite a long time.
Of course.
But now the question in some people's minds may be, at what point did Chief Bisi Akande
Come in.
convince, yes, come in
Well,
to the
but
picture?
what point exactly?
Yeah, well, I think that's the more reason our friends and viewers should read the details.
Exactly. Of
for
course, you know how it is. A
this
lot of people
morning.
want to take credit when it.
Right, yeah,
people
because
just want to. I want
success
to
has
be,
many friends.
It has. Success has many friends. So let's just say, like we said, go out and get yourself a copy to be well informed. How he came into that
To convince the
picture to
president.
convince the president.
Right. All right, page 24 of today's issue of the Daily Trust is where you find those details. Appeal courts affirms IPOB as terrorist group. Democracy has come to stay in Nigeria. That's General Abdulsalami Abubakar retired there talking. That story, incidentally, is replicated across papers today.
Yes, it is.
All right, so now to the Star headline. Fresh controversy trails IGP's tenure extension. 4 riders with that headline. Showore insists Egbetokun stay illegal. Nothing wrong with his status. AGF Agbemi. Sacking top cop will save Nigeria embarrassment. Police council duly confirmed him, says Force headquarters. Hajj 2025 low turnouts. Let's see that for you. Hajj 2025 is your kicker. Says low turnouts as fair payment deadline ends today. Northern elders fault ex-NHIA boss's arrest as court remands Yusuf in EFCC custody. We understand that case will be heard again on Monday since it could not be arraigned yesterday. Low crude supply marks Naira for crude scheme. With a rider that says Dangote gets 61,290 barrels per day for March as against 380,000 barrels per day mandates. It seems like a case of what I ordered versus what I got here. But we don't need to forget real quick how that when President Bola Tinubu, in what some people say was the president's magnanimity, had said that rather than give this refinery an extra work of having to buy crude in dollar, let's do the Naira for crude thing for them. And for many Nigerians, that was more like a relief.
Yes,
But that, we are now told, has also hit some sort of brick walls, yes, at this point. Well, those are the headlines for you from the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. I'm sure we can do one more paper.
Oh, yes, we can. And we'll be looking at Leadership Friday.
Right.
And above the nameplate of the Leadership Friday says FBN Holdings pre-tax profit for 2024 FY hits 862 billion naira, surges by 142% for individuals who are into business news and all of that. You can find that read on page 7 of the Leadership Friday. And below the nameplate it says VC appointment, Uni Abuja professors plain fresh talks with minister. You can find that on page 27. Now the star story there, which is worrisome, says Lafia Cargo Airport facilities rotting away. And the rider there, we have 3 riders there. Federal government abandons project after takeover commissioning. It's a sad situation. Al Makura, in the voice of Al Makura, aviation ministry keeps mum. You see that? You know, that's my problem. Like when people take over office or take over a particular position, you just forget what you do, what the predecessor has done, instead of you to work on it to make it better. Like it's just unfortunate that the Lafia Cargo Airport is nothing to write home about at this point. Facilities that billions of naira was spent on is rotting away. As in, is there any explanation for that? And that's what we get. Other people feel that once my predecessor is out of office, I have a new idea. Work on the old idea, make it better, and then you can implement on your new idea to just bringing everything together. It was unfortunate that millions of naira was definitely spent on this particular commissioning, and of course the cargo, and now is rotting away, and it's just unfortunate. Really,
It's sad.
it's really sad.
This is in Nasarawa State.
Yes, it is in Nasarawa State. And of course, leadership says Gold Standard Award picture series, and we can see that there. And Abdusalami Kuka, INEC seeks true democracy, and you can find that read on page 16 of the Leadership Friday. Just go out and get yourself a copy of the Leadership Friday and be well informed on news making rounds. And I think that's, can we take one more paper or
let's see if we can do one more paper.
Let's just do one more
real
paper
quick for you everyone this morning. Well, all the papers are loaded,
yes they are,
but what more can we say? All right, let's do a quick switch now as we take a look at the Standard Times. All right, our next part of call and indeed our last paper. Above the nameplate of the Standard Times this morning, NNPCL partners launch 5 mini LNG plants in Kogi. That's above the nameplate. Then top right corner, Okpebolo approves 21-year jail term for cultist sponsors in Edo. Now I hear some Edo residents say it's been a long time coming. All right, alleged cyber crime, court admits Sowore to 10 million naira bail. And then the big headline, Nigeria's e-transactions hit 1.07 quadrillion in 2024. That's according to the Nigerian Interbank Settlement System, NIBSS, for you. All right, we'll take this down a little lower. Alleged attempted kidnap, that's a kicker. A court fixes March 20 for Evans's plea bargain hearing. Last time he was in court, he said he's now a changed man. All right, I don't know how the law is going to deal with that, but he has to still stand in front of a judge. IGP's continuous stay in office legal lawful. That's credited to the Attorney General of the Federation. Man set ablaze for beheading woman for money ritual in Delta, and that's one more alleged ritual killing too many.
Too many. What's going on?
Well,
unemployment. What's going on? The hardship,
yes.
Economy. A lot of people are facing. They're finding the easy way out of this particular
and then there's
situation.
brainwashing in between.
There's brainwashing in between. Unfortunate incident there.
Sad.
Really sad.
Edo election, INEC submits Beavers machines to tribunal. Right, what's more, auction of vehicles, EFCC to review complaints against auctioneers. And then Lagos House of Assembly crisis, ex-speaker Obasa's removal, legal Lagos lawmakers insist, well, they will have their day with the with the DSS to also explain that, because we understand the DSS has waded in now, and let's see how this turns out. But whatever happens, let it all be in the overall interest of millions of Lagosians whom they are elected to serve. All right, that's a wrap on the papers. A quick caveat that all the papers and their headlines will bring to you here on Global Morning exclusively as they are published by their respective publishers. Global Morning has no contribution to them. Global Television has no editorial latitude to influence these headlines and their details.
All right, that's it on the newspaper review. Up next is the AM News. Do not go anywhere. The program continues shortly. Stay tuned.
Global Morning is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and internationals.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Mondays to Sundays to a wide range are the latest news making rounds on Global Money.
We're on the road to protest.
The president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning.
welcome to all our viewers in Nigeria and around the world to AM News on Global Television. Coming to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja, I am Jumai Manson. Now, a quick reminder that Global Television is on DSTV channel 365 and free to air on Nicomsat. Now the news in full. President Bola Tinubu has expressed sadness over the death of at least 18 persons in an air accident in Washington, D.C., United States. It was reported that a passenger jet carrying 64 people crashed into Washington's Potomac River on Wednesday after colliding mid-air with a military helicopter near Ronald Reagan National Airport. The tragic incident, which occurred at about 9 p.m. on Wednesday, resulted in the death of 18 passengers and many injured. Desertification and insecurity arising from internal conflicts within Lake Chad are believed to be responsible for the long-decade food insecurity in the region. On the second day of the Lake Chad Basin Governors Forum, participants appear united in addressing food insecurity across the Lake Chad region. Global Television correspondent Idris Jabir has the details.
For centuries, the Lake Chad region has been largely regarded as a source of economic hub in Africa. However, the lack of infrastructure and more recently food insecurity arising from climate change and conflicts have left the region in what many have described as a sorry state, with the government and other humanitarian agencies in the region now working towards a permanent solution.
Something that has been on for a very long time. Subsequently, then we had internal conflicts, not regional in terms of cross-boundary conflicts, but internal conflicts. Most of the countries around the Chad Basin, especially during the pre-independence time, there were internal conflicts, some even post-independence. Then, of course, in the 80s, there were regional issues between Nigeria and Chad, and then you had rebel groups springing up in those areas. Those conflicts really impacted seriously on the economic well-being of that region.
Experts say 50 million people in Africa are food insecure, and that in 2024 alone, Nigeria had lost over 850 metric tons of food due to conflict and climate change. Within the Lake Chad region, for instance, the low rainfall in Borno State and other neighboring Lake Chad countries requires permanent solution by first providing climate-resilient crops to farmers across the region.
In this zone, it's usually below 500 millimeters. Crops can hardly do without irrigation. This is a natural factor that we need to consider. Down northern Borno State up to the Republic of Niger, Dipa province, and then up to the north of Chad, rainfall is very low.
In 2020, in our region, West Africa, we had 15 million of persons in food insecurity. Despite all the effort that we did, today we have 50 million of persons in food insecurity in our region, in West Africa. That means that in 5 years, we increased the number of persons in food insecurity by 35 million of persons, despite all the effort that we are doing.
Having identified conflict and climate change as the major threat to food security in the region, this forum now believes that an opportunity for investment in agriculture must be made by member states to actively convert their effort into durable solution. From Maiduguri, Idris Jibrin reporting for Global Television News.
A former presidential candidate and activist Omoyele Sowore has been granted bail in the sum of 10 million naira, with one surety in like sum. Justice Musa Liman, who ruled on the bail application, ordered Sowore to deposit his international passport with the court, adding that the surety must be a responsible individual with landed property of equal value and is required to submit the original documents of the property along with a passport photograph to the court registrar. He was given 24 hours to meet the bail conditions or be remanded in police custody. Over now to Kwara State University, Malete has said that the recent one-year ban on admission into the Kwara State University Law Program does not affect students currently running their programs in its Faculty of Law. The Acting Director of University Relations, Dr. Shedat Aliyu, disclosed this in a statement in Ilorin. Aliyu said the ban was a result of the decision of the Council for Legal Education to sanction the university for commencing the law program in 2018 with only the approval of the National Universities Commission. The National Association of Nigeria Students has called on the Governing Council of the University of Nigeria in Nsukka and the Federal Ministry of Education to restore the institution's accountability and ensure that students receive the quality education they deserve. NANS, in a statement by its Senate President Babatunde Akinteye in Ibadan, the Oyo State capital, also supported the Governing Council to set up a committee to probe allegations against the registrar by the students. Akinteye said one of the allegations was a deliberate delay in fumigating the university's 27 hostels despite severe pest infestations. The Nigerian Labour Congress declared it would embark on a nationwide protest against the proposed 50% telecom tariff hike announced by the Nigerian Communications Commission on February 4th in a communique signed by its national president Joe Ajaero. The decision was taken at the National Administrative Council meeting at the NLC on January 29th. Similarly, civil society organizations have pledged their support for the nationwide protest. The Nigerian Labour Congress has issued a stern warning to state governments and other employers of labor, threatening decisive action against those who fail to implement the 70,000 national minimum wage and the corresponding salary adjustments by the end of the first quarter of 2025. And the warning was made by President of the Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities, Mohammed Ibrahim, during the association's national leadership retreat in Abuja. Ibrahim, who also serves as the National International Auditor of the NLC, emphasized that state governments and institutions delaying or manipulating wage payments would face serious consequences. The Federal High Court Ado-Ekiti Division struck out the suit filed by the Inspector General of Police Kayode Egbetoko against activist lawyer Dele Farotimi bordering on cybercrime. Justice Babs Kinwemi struck out the suit following notice of discontinuation of the Police Council. However, Farotimi's lawyer Adeyinka Olumide Fasika-San described the discontinuation of the suit as a missed opportunity for the court to correct the police on the use of Cybercrime Act. The Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Hassan Abubakar, says that the Nigerian Air Force aims to have over 30,000 personnel by 2027. This was as he reaffirmed the Air Force commitment to national security, vowing to bring justice to criminals operating in ungoverned spaces across the country. Abubakar disclosed that the Nigerian Air Force has seen an 86% increase in manpower over the last 13 years, with the number of airmen and airwomen doubling since 2013. Governor Caleb Mufwang of Plateau State has sacked 5 commissioners, among them 2 who were recently recalled from suspension. The governor immediately announced 5 commissioner nominees. The State Commissioner for Information, Musa Ashom, confirmed the development. The Nigerian Air Force, under the air component of Operation Hadi Kai, has neutralized a yet-to-be-known number of Boko Haram terrorists during an air intercation in Dabawe and Chikde, Goza local government area of Borno State. It was reported that the precision airstrike targeted high-profile terrorist leaders following intelligence report of a mass gathering of insurgents in the area around 8 p.m. The air raid hit camps under the command of Ali Ndulde, as known Boko Haram leader. You are watching the live broadcast of AM News on Global Television, coming to you from the nation's capital, Abuja. When AM News returns, the European Union powers 25 plateau health centers with solar energy. We will bring you those details as well as business and sports stories right after the break. Please stay with us. You're welcome back, and if you're just tuning in, this is AM News on Global Television. Thank you for staying with us. On our business desk now, the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, says its Tower T195 along the Angwaja-Markodi 330 kilowatt transmission line was vandalized. TCN's General Manager Public Affairs Ndidi Umba in Abuja said that the vandalism took place at Wotola Village, Utonkon in Ado local government area of Benue. Umba, however, said the vandalism was averted by the vigilance of the community members who at about 3 a.m. noticed suspicious activity around the tower. The federal government has assured that it will swiftly address the lingering ownership dispute and gas supply challenges crippling operations at the Aluminium Smelter Company of Nigeria in Ikot, Abasi, Akwa Ibom State. The Minister of Steel Development, Prince Shaibu Audu, gave its assurance during a visit to the idle multi-billion-dollar plant on Monday, vowing that the facility would be reviewed in line with President Bola Tinubu's renewed hope agenda. A statement by the company's managing director, Zoyak Damartri, says stakeholders' consultations had reached an advanced stage to resolve key issues, including the degrading of the Imo River to enhance industrial operations. Lagos State Butchers Association says the number of cows slaughtered daily in the state has dropped from 5,000 to 3,000. The association's patron Alhaji Bamidele Kazim disclosed this in an interview in Lagos. Kazim says the decline was due to the country's ongoing socio-economic challenges. He noted that the drop in cattle slaughter began in 2015 due to the Boko Haram insurgency and worsened with the current exchange rate crisis and inflation. A significant majority of Nigerian households and businesses believe that the current inflation rate is high. This is according to the Central Bank of Nigeria and CBN Inflation Expectations Report for December 2024. The report noted that 83.5% of households and 80.6% of businesses perceive inflation to be at an elevated level, reflecting the persistent economic pressure faced by consumers and enterprises alike. Meta has agreed to pay President Donald Trump $25 million to settle a 2021 lawsuit he filed claiming he was wrongfully censored by Facebook and Instagram after the U.S. Capitol riot. The Wall Street Journal Force reported the settlement of the suit brought against Meta and is chief executive Mark Zuckerberg in what was seen as a victory for Trump. According to people familiar with the agreement, the journal said $22 million of the payment will go towards funding Trump's future presidential library, with a reminder covering legal fees and payments to other plaintiffs in the case. The European Union announced the launch of solar projects to ensure that healthcare facilities in Plateau State have uninterrupted access to reliable electricity for medical equipment, thereby improving healthcare services for local communities. The project, funded by EU in partnership with the Plateau State government, highlights the importance of clean energy in enhancing the quality of life, particularly in rural healthcare settings. According to a statement issued by EU Commission in Abuja, speaking at the launch of the Solar for Health project, the lead of green and digital economy at EU delegation Nigerian ECOWAS, Inga Stafawansik, referred the EU's commitment to supporting Nigeria's energy sector through initiatives like Solar for Health. On our business desk now, Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi has vowed to restore government authority in the east, where Rwanda-backed 23M rebels have seized much of the city of Goma and reportedly advancing south to seize more territory. In a televised address to the nation, he said the vigorous and coordinated response against what he called terrorists was underway. He criticized the international community for interaction and for not doing enough in the wake of the escalating security crisis. A Scottish court ruled against the development of 2 oil and gas fields in the North Sea in a historic win for 2 environmental groups. Scotland's courts of season agreed with campaign groups Uplift with Greenpeace and ruled that the previous UK government approved for the multi-billion-pound Rosebank and Jackdaw fields were unlawful, as they did not consider the carbon emissions the projects will indirectly generate. Judge Andrew Stewart, who presided over the presidential review, said he had considered all circumstances and concluded in favor of granting reduction in legal term for revoking approval. U.S. President Donald Trump has ordered the construction of a migrant detection facility in Guantanamo Bay, which he says would hold as many as 30,000 people. He said the facility at U.S. Navy base in Cuba, which would be separate from its high-security military prison, will house the worst criminal illegal aliens threatening the American people. Guantanamo Bay has long been used to house immigrants, a practice that has been criticized by some human rights groups. Russia has stepped up its military withdrawal from Syria, removing vehicles and containers from its key turtle ports on the country's Mediterranean coast, analysis suggests. After the fall of the Assad regime in December, verified footage showed columns of Russian vehicles moving north towards the port. Satellite images subsequently showed military hardware being stored there. But now images published by Planet Labs shows that much of the material have now disappeared after the departure of vessels linked to the Russian military. And finally, on our sports stories now, the horse named Hope, renewed and sponsored by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, won the Star and Grounding race to take home to the star prize of the Stallion Car trophy and cash at the just concluded Renewed Hope International Horse Racing Derby in Bida, Niger State. The tournament was held at the Sultan Saad Abubakar International Race Course, Bida, and was organized by Alhaji Yahaya Abubakar, the Esu Nupe, in conjunction with the Horse Racing Federation of Nigeria, led by Alhaji Tajuddin A. Dantata. The well-attended tournament had participating teams and horses from both Nigeria and neighboring countries like Niger Republic. Borussia Dortmund have announced the appointment of Niko Kovac as their new head coach, just a week after parting ways with Nuri Sahin. The 53-year-old Berlin native will take over on Sunday. One day after Dortmund Brentelazia's clash against Bochum has signed a contract with the court that runs until 30th June 2026. As we end the Global TV AM news, let's take a quick look at our top stories again. President Bola Tinubu has expressed sadness over the death of at least 18 persons in an air accident in Washington, D.C., United States. And on the second day of Lake Chad Basin Governors Forum, participants appear united in addressing food insecurity across the Lake Chad region. On the foreign scene now, Russia has stepped up its military withdrawal from Syria, removing vehicles and containers from its key Tartus port on the country's Mediterranean coast, analysis suggests. And finally, in sports, a horse named Hope, renewed and sponsored by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, won the Star and Crowning race at the just concluded Renewed Hope International Horse Racing Derby in Bida, Niger State. And that's it on Global Television AM News. A quick reminder that Global TV is on DSTV channel 365, on Star Times channel 276, and free to air on NICOMSAT. Kindly follow us across all social media platforms now showing on your screen by using @Global TV NG. I am Jumai Manson. Thank you for watching. Good morning.
your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and international.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Mondays to Sundays to a wide range of the latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest.
The president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning.
All right, let's return to the talking points that we had raised earlier. Quite a number of them this morning, including some that are, just a human angle specific, others with so much of political elements coming with them. Of course, it's near impossible to have a program like this in a country like ours and not go political at some point. But before all of that comes your way, we are doing a debut of a gentleman on the program this morning, one who will now and in the future be an anchor here on Global Morning, as well as a few of our other programs. So you will see more of his face from time to time. Godwin Sunday.
Good morning,
Good to have you first time ever on Global Morning.
Yeah. Good morning, Nigerians. Good morning, viewers across the world. And of course, it's a pleasure to be here this morning.
Great. Just to again reiterate that you are going to see Sunday Godwin's face time and again on the program. And then, of course, as well as other programs. So let's first just talk about a few of the big stories we have in the country right now. We've seen some people who, some Nigerians now refer to as opposition elements, railing against the sitting, let's not say the president, but the ruling party, the All Progressives Congress, the APC. The most recent of them being former governor of Rivers State, Rotimi Amechi, who also was a minister in this country for 8 years at the point. And then you have immediate past governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasir El-Rufai. All of them, maybe throwing canisters at the APC. And people are wondering, hold on a second, these gentlemen are not just supposed to be members of the All Progressives Congress, they're supposed to be leaders and chieftains in their rights in this political party. I mean, you are politically savvy, you follow political developments quite a lot. What have been your thoughts in this regard?
All right. So, at first when I listened to El-Rufai coming out to speak, then subsequently followed by Rotimi Amechi.
Right.
And I've been following some of the conversations for a while, and it's really worrisome. One begin to ask salient questions first. Is there a disconnect in the All Progressive Congress among the elder statesmen? Are they supposed to be given certain benefits and that they have been deprived of? Now, questions like this begins to arise. Then again, when you see the likes of some of the inputs that El-Rufai has been able to put on the party, one will believe that at this point, some form of compensation, even though it was unanimously denied the ministerial appointment by the Nigerians and Senate. But then we should have seen other appointments coming out, probably by way of contract, by way of being a support mechanism to the government and other form of contributions to the government. But we've not seen all of those play out in recent times. And so that have automatically placed El-Rufai at the back door of making him politically inconsequential as it stands right now. So that of Rotimi Amechi, we will say that Rotimi Amechi is trying to buy his way back to the limelight, because since Wike became the governor, we didn't really hear much from Rotimi Amechi, apart from the fact that he was just the Minister of Transportation. We didn't hear much from Rotimi Amechi. Now we've have a scenario where Fubara is there, and we've not seen Fubara give a thumbs up to Rotimi Amechi for any cause. Now, this also has made Rotimi Amechi to become more of, let's use the word inconsequential in Rivers State politics as it stands right now. So, for me, I think that although he's an APC stalwart, he's an APC elder statesman, but he's trying to buy his way back to the political limelight in terms of the political, let's use the political strata of Rivers State as it stands right now. But we hope that in the coming days, the APC will be able to look for better ways to address some of these concerns being raised by their elder statesmen, especially that of El-Rufai. He raised quite a number of questions that are begging for answers. We need to give rationalities to some of those things that he has even raised as a person. But then again, that's even on a lighter note. But then let's look at it more critically. When we look at the politics that is playing out in national politics, one begin to ask questions like, is the All Progressive Congress missing out something as it stands right now, in terms of the point where some appointments that are given are not in line. I'm not in line with some of the things that the party, what's one of the founding policies and some of the manifesto of the party. We've seen the party derailing in some of the things that it promised Nigeria.
In terms of the renewed hope agenda.
Renewed hope agenda. It has been able to move. Let's move one or twice derail from that course. And when I listen to El Rufai, you can beat a child, you can kill the messenger, but you can't kill the message. El Rufai has come out to raise some salient concerns. Yes, we know that these are all politically motivated, but at this point in time, I think that the All Progressive Congress should begin to look inward to what El Rufai have come out to say. Some of the issues that he has raised, those issues are not, if it is being raised by an opposition, we'll say, okay, they try to play to the gallery of politics. But right now, it's being raised by an elder statesman of the party. And this is not just El Rufai coming out to speak. Most APC elder statesmen have come out to also hold sway to this political angles of the conversations. Right. But we hope that serious conversations of this magnitude will begin to be given serious consideration by the party in the days to come.
All right, it's a wonderful place to, leave that sort of narrative. But let's turn to, I'll say we begin with Amaechi, for example. Okay. Amaechi contested the presidential ticket of the APC in 2023 with then candidates Bola Ahmed Tinubu, now President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. We remembered how that he had to run around the stadium one time to show how fit he was. Of course, those were all political gymnastics, all right, to establish a point going into the election proper. The rest is history now, as they say, because ultimately it was candidates Bola Tinubu, as it then was, who clinched their tickets. Now is the president. We need to also establish how that once elections held, even all through the campaigns that led into that election, we heard next to nothing from Rotimi Amaechi. One would have thought for someone who couldn't clinch the ticket, he should probably have followed the path of the likes of past, former governor of Ekiti State, talking about Kayode Fayemi, to say, okay, yes, we may not have gotten the tickets. For whatever it's worth, this is our party, our candidates now in front of us. Let's throw our weight behind him, give him all the support he needs and all of that. We didn't see that happen. Some people say, well, he went off the radar. And for more than a year, he has not practically been seen publicly identifying with the party in any way, in any capacity and all of that. That in itself raised questions as to what exactly is the status of the former Rivers State governor within the leadership fold of the APC. Some said, well, he was making most of the defects. Others said he just didn't want to be associated with the APC under the leadership of President Bola Tinubu for reasons best known to him. Of course, those reasons are political. Now, these were all, or have all been in the realm of speculation. Very recently, ironically, the man has started speaking up about stuff. And just yesterday, for instance, we read of how that he has said Nigerian politicians come into office to steal, to kill, to maim, and to perpetuate themselves in office. And we are wondering, you were in Rivers State House of Assembly for many years. You were speaker for several years at the state level. You became governor for 8 years. You became minister for 7 years and 6 months. Between the PDP and the APC, you've always been there, as they say. So at what point did you now extricate yourself from these bunch of politicians that you claim only come to office to kill, maim, destroy, and perpetuate themselves in office? That now gave basis to people to speculate that, well, if Mr. Amaechi had been in government, particularly this government of President Bola Tinubu, there's a pretty good chance he won't be sounding off the way he's doing right now. That's what Amaechi. And then we'll move on to the other gentleman, immediate past governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasiru El-Rufai. Of course, we saw how, unlike Amaechi, Nasiru El-Rufai had thrown his weight behind the then candidate of the APC, now the president. How that he was even one of the key figures that accompanied him to Chatham House in London just a few weeks to the general election. In fact, he spoke in London at the Chatham House while he was there with President Bola Tinubu, to the point that some persons had said, look, not only will Malam Nasir El-Rufai make it to the government of President Bola Tinubu if he won the election, this was before the election in March of 2023, he would most likely be Minister of Defense. But of course, we know better, that never happened. In fact, he never made it to the government. On the day he was being screened, there were controversies. There was chaos of some kind, including the fact that there is a damning security report against him that would eventually prevent him from being screened and, of course, passed, so to say, even though he's a former senator, to go further with that nomination that had been done by the president. There are people who have now looked at the rhetorics coming out from Malam Nasir El-Rufai to say, look, Oga, it's because you're not in government. If you had been in government, in this APC government, you won't be sounding the way you are doing right now. We've seen Daniel Bwala say that, one of the media handlers of the president. However, the former Kaduna State governor, as is always the case with him, has not minced words in saying that, look, this is not about whether I'm in government or not. All of you in this government serving under President Bola Tinubu know that what I'm saying is the truth. You know that these points I'm raising are not only valid, they touch at the very core of our national development as a country. Now, Godwin, you made a point a while ago. You said, look, you may have a problem with the messenger, but don't take your eye off the message, right? So the question is, what exactly is the message that the former Kaduna State governor is sending to the APC? That's one question. The second question perhaps is the APC taking it in good faith? Are they being dispassionate about how they approach the issues that have been raised by this eloquent gentleman, Malam Nasir El-Rufai? It's very important because you stretch it further on the final note. There are those who would say, well, all of these drama and hula baloo you're seeing from the APC and from those who are now opposed to the APC is only about 2027 election. Everybody is trying to position themselves strategically for 2027. Otherwise, nobody will be speaking the way they are doing right now. But 2027 is still a bit far flung. We continue to watch the drama and the intrigues as they play out.
It keeps unfolding. The drama keeps unfolding.
Of course, never ends.
The dramas in Nigeria, I don't think it's coming to an end very soon.
Well, of course.
Because Reno Mokri just joined in the conversation, and of course he has been at the back end also trying to do his checks and balances. And if you check some of his comments lately, it's really funny on one hand. But like you've rightly said, we hope and keep our fingers crossed that the All Progressive Congress will be able. But then before we even call it a wrap on that particular conversation, I was even looking at it from the perspective of instead of coming out to speak outrightly, I think there should be some form of a party mechanisms that has been put in place for stakeholders of the party to come in and add a view. I understand that on a normal, we have the political structures which we call from the cells through to the branch and through to the caucus. Then it now ends, I think, to the militia or the normal political structure for the political party. So they should begin to look internally how to be able to address some of these things, because some of these tendencies can pose anti-party tendencies. It has anti-party tendencies that one will begin to say, hey, it's as if you want to defect. That's why you are coming out at this point to speak against your party. If you have a concern, a different view from what the party holds, I think the likes of Nasir El-Rufai and Rotimi Amechi and other aggrieved party members, including Igbokwe, that is also tilting. He doesn't know where he's tilting his towards right now. It's just so most of them should come.
Because let's be clear, Igbokwe is a staunch supporter of President Bola Tinubu.
But Igbokwe right now, we don't know which side of the divide he is right now. But he has always been a strong supporter of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. But right now, he has always held offices in Lagos, and he has always been there at the forefront of just almost the same thing we have with El-Rufai. So we can't say right now which side of the divide he is, because, of course, appointments are not rolling towards that side, and it's glaring already. Well, let's not go into that as it stands. But the party needs to look at it internally and create a channel where people can air their grievances and be treated without making it a public conversation.
All right, without making it a public conversation, we'll take a quick break, everyone. So much to talk about politics on the program here. When we return, we have more of that talk coming. Do stay with us. All right, so let's stretch it a little further, everyone. Godwin, you know, one of the reasons people would always want to support El-Rufai in this regard is that we've seen how he has been, as they say, hobnobbing with opposition figures recently, particularly in the SDP, for example. He's been doing a lot of outreach and trying to, you know, shake hands with people from the other side, if you like. And just this week, he has also put up, he has organized a press conference here in Abuja where he addressed some of these issues, of course. And that is, for many people, substantial basis to speculate that this gentleman is about to defect. And people are now saying that, look, if you allow people like El-Rufai join the likes of Lukman, former national, vice national chairman north of the APC, all right, leave the party. These are strong people, particularly from the northern region. President Bola Tinubu and the APC are not going to find the outcome very pleasant going into the 2027 election. So there's a lot of realigning, if you like, going on right now, whether it's in the APC or outside of the APC. In the meantime, the APC is also now being accused of being the sponsors, so to say, of the crisis you see in the PDP and in the Labour Party. Yesterday, one of the leaders of the LP, talking about Arambabi, was on a different channel where he was talking about how that is an insult to say, an insult to President Tinubu to say that he gave 50 million to the PDP and the Labour Party just so they can be compromised in favor of the APC and all of that. But these antics are not new. Every other time you have an election cycle coming, you see all of these sort of intrigues playing out and so on and so forth. But let's also be clear real quick. People like El-Rufai have been very pivotal to APC. These are people with clout, whether you like it or not. Now, some political analysts now believe that if you allow persons like this, dissociate themselves from the party, it's going to have dire consequences for the ruling All Progressives Congress.
Well, I want to agree that if you allow a person like El-Rufai to leave the party, to defect to other party, it has dire consequences on the party. But then again, one begin to ask questions like, for 8 years that El-Rufai has been the governor of Kaduna State,
right?
What has been the outcome so far, even when he left office? Now, Uba and Senator Sani and the rest of them have come out to accuse El-Rufai countless times of a lot of irregularities in the system. Now, whether this is for chasing political clout or what have you, some of these cases are still in court, so we won't want to even delve into
we don't go
as it stands right now. But the thing is, if you look at the scenario right now and what is playing out, there are questions that are still begging for answers. And some of those questions we need answers to them as it stands right now. The first question is the one raised by Sani, which he has come out to say, hey, you've come out to say that you've pointed out a lot of things But for a while, going to a year, you've been quiet. Is it born out of joblessness that you've come out to speak?
Right.
As it stands right now. And another question, again, that's also begging for answer. Again, most of those politicians, right now, you're faulting the system. You're faulting some of the things that is being the processes that is bringing in people that are occupying sensitive governmental offices, the ministers. Most of them are not delivering. But when you were in office, there were points where people were clamoring for you to deliver on certain things.
Right.
And you know the process. Is it the right time to speak, to begin to pose critical analysis on a particular government? So at what point did we become sanctimonious in a space of 1 year, and we can say that we can analyze the government and come up with tangible results that A, B, and C are not working, so automatically this is a failed government in a space of 2 years?
2 years, yeah, right.
Now, if it was to be in government, will it be able to also say that, okay, at this point in time, I've examined my government and in the space of 2 years we failed, if it was supposed to be in government? Now, another issue that we also need to look at is the issue of criticizing your own party, the ruling party. Now, which is saying that we need the national emergencies in some of these things that we do. I think that it is a fantastic message, but then, like I've said earlier, we need to, again, the BOT of the All Progressive Congress needs to go back and do a thorough job and look at these things from all angles. If we can say, because El-Rufai might have had his own issues, it might be a lot of people in Kaduna will say that he has his way around things. Whenever he wants it done, he gets it done. It damns the consequences, and that makes him a very die-hard leader. He wants to get the job done. But then let's look at it also from this particular angle. Is what he's saying, is it correct? Now, if it is, we now say that the government is led by President Buhari and President Bola Tinubu, who happens to be a person that listens a lot. And El-Rufai happens to be a person that have full access to President Bola Tinubu. The question for me that is begging for answer is, why is El-Rufai not taking this conversation to President Tinubu, knowing first that both of them are friends, they are allies. They've been together throughout the course of the election. I know sometimes if you recall during the election, where if they ask President Tinubu some questions, he will just tell you, El-Rufai, give them the answer. Right. I don't know if you recall. Very well. So, that was in the build up to the election, during campaign. All of those scenarios.
So what happened to that relationship?
So this is, for me, El-Rufai should look for a modality to be able to have access to the president and spew some of those things he's pouring out, sharing to the public. Let's have this conversation with the president. Let's have this conversation with the BOT.
Rather than going
public with this. Because the image we're trying to push out there, a lot of people might not understand what you're trying to say. A lot of people might misconstrue the message that you're trying to give out. Even the party right now might be thrown along a lot of lines as it stands right now, because some statement might automatically place the party on a divisional track. Some people will say, okay, I agree to what he has said. A lot of people say, no, I don't agree. Automatically, they agreed and don't agree. I've automatically told the party along different lines, which will now bring us back to almost the same thing PDP is experiencing. We'll now have different cartels, different group inside the party. Of course, I don't want to go into PDP. At least we'll begin to talk about the PDP secretary and the secretariat issue right now. But then that's my 1 penny on this matter right now.
Okay, 1 penny. That's worth a lot on the program this morning. We're taking a quick break, everyone. When we return, we'll turn our attention to the telecom tariff hike, 50%, which has now become a case of more like between a hard place and the rock. On the one hand, the Nigerian Communications Commission says to Nigerians, look, We need to meet midway, right, in favor of citizens and, of course, the consumers of these services, and then the operators who provide these services. In the middle of that, the NLC now says we are not buying none of this. Instead, on the 4th of February, which happens to be next Tuesday, we take to the streets to protest this 50% tariff hike. All of those coming shortly. Stay with us. Okay, so let's go more human angle for a second, everyone. When they talk about how there was need, well, some of the executives in the telecom sector told us the need was also urgent to raise telecom tariff a bit. Of course, at some point they said specifically by 100%. It was totally concerning for many Nigerians, and most of the consumers of these services did say to themselves, this was never going to happen. Well, it did happen. It has happened, even though it was by half as against the originally proposed 100% tariff hike. Today, that hike has been approved by 50% by no other than the Nigerian Communications Commission, the NCC, the regulator of the telecom sector in Nigeria. Now, for Nigerians who have already been grappling with heavy burden of hardship, economic hardship that is, this hike is nothing but an extra layer of trouble for them. Therefore, it's natural and understandable when they say, look, the best thing, the honorable thing to do at this point is to rethink this idea and then, of course, rescind this action. However, that doesn't seem to be happening just yet, because we've seen the NCC, we've seen the FCCPC, that's the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, now saying that we understand the hardship, we understand the implication of this hike. However, Nigerians, you also need to understand that these telecoms operators run businesses that must stay afloat if you must continue to enjoy these services. In the meantime, the Nigeria Labour Congress, and as expected, the entire gamut of organized labor would not buy any of these. Instead, they now say, one way we are going to pass our message and establish our stance on this matter is to take to the streets by way of protest come 4th of February, and that's just 4 days away. Now, Godwin, again, I turn to you. I mean, you enjoy telecom services in this country. By the way, Godwin has a number of devices, so he's a typical Nigerian consumer of digital services, telecom subscriber. But quite frankly, right, many Nigerians see this coming. For many people I talk with, especially off television, it's more like an ambush for them. But can we also be fair to telecoms operators themselves for a minute?
Well, first, let me say that the NLC, Nigerian Labour Congress, coming out to say they want to go for a peaceful demonstration on the 4th of February, I think is the right step in the right direction. For the federal government to come out again to say that, hey, NCC coming out to say we're getting 50%, and this is based on their act. I think there was section 108 of the NCC Act.
Right.
It gave them that room for them. But although the telecommunication operators are also clamoring for a 100% hike, tariff hike, but I think they will meet at a round table again to have that conversation if 50% works. But they are not communication operators are not even buying to the 50% because to them, the cost of diesel has gone up, and also they've also pointed out that the foreign exchange also has gone up. Equipment has gone up. The last tariff adjustment was around 2013 or thereabout, and inflation has also skyrocketed
over time
since then. So some of the things that they've noted, they are all the things that we can verify. An average Nigerian live with these hikes. And also, they've also mentioned, while operators have asked for 100% increase, NCC only approved only 50% and promised stricter monitoring of service. So they must now clearly communicate their new rates, and whichever way they're going to do that. But NCC has also promised that we're going to have better services if this is fully implemented. Now, let me speak from the angle of Nigerians and from my angle of those of us that have a lot of gadgets, like you've rightly mentioned. So let me speak from that angle. First, the tariff hike, I think first it was not discussed with Nigerians. And this is the challenge we have with some of the policy implementations in the country. We have fantastic policy formulations, we have a poor implementation strategy, and we have a no evaluation strategy in this country. I'm sorry to just say it, but it appears so. Because most times when policies are put in place, we see implementation go halfway, but we never ask questions. We never evaluate some of those policies. And once these are not adequately exercised, it brings the policy formulation process to a total ridicule. Now, when we ask the first question, since 2013 till date, what has happened to Nigerian telecommunication services? Now, we've had a lot of scenarios. We've had scenarios where they've moved us from 3G to 4G to 5Gs, and the Gs keep going up. But then, how effective has the communication drive in Nigeria been, even to remote communities, to rural communities? You get to some part of Nigeria and you can barely, why am I saying part of Nigeria? If you travel as far as Cross River State, there's some parts in Cross River State where you can't even have access to network. It is that
for calls, not even data.
No, data is extreme. Just to make calls. Just in Cross River State. Now, let's not talk about Gombe. Let's not take this conversation to Yobe. Let's not return back to Taraba. Let's talk about the core north. Then move a little bit to Badagry in Lagos. Then travel down to Ogun State. There are some places in Ogun State, after you've gone through from Ibafo down to Mowe, down to all of those inside Ashishi, and you can still tell yourself that there are no service for some. Let me not call the name of the service providers right now, but even to make calls. So, how have NCC been able to monitor this scenario to ensure that what the service providers promise to give out is what we get? Have they been able to do all of this? Not just coming out that there's an act that says that Section 108 gives you the right to do do A, B, and C, but how effective have we been able to evaluate some of our service providers in the country? Now, that's on one hand. Now, because these have not been effectively delivered, it will now pose a challenge. And this is the challenge. Nigerians will now begin to ask questions like, I buy internet, I pay for subscriptions, and I don't know how. Some people even put it on the social media space where they'll tell you that most service providers use straw to suck off their internet. They can't account for it. You're buying 20 gig and you don't, some people even turn their gigs off and you can't account for it. How best have we been able to follow up on some of what is being provided? That's the first thing, that's the first call to the NCC. Because if we're getting value for our money, Nigerians have been getting value no matter how little it is. If Nigerian Labour Congress come out to say, hey, the hike is too much, the tariff hike is not doable, Nigerians will come out and say, no. I think it is based on what we've been able to point out, the cost of diesel, the cost of this and that. Of course, this is the practical scenario. Let's give it a thumbs up and let's work with this because this is the reality. on ground. But right now, a lot of people will shield their sword to the Nigerian Labour Congress and say, hey, of course, Nigerian Labour Congress are right in this particular light. Now, let's go back again to the part of the consumer as it stands right now. Again, the consumer, a lot of consumers, you will agree with me that a lot of consumers right now will also want to ask the question, what's the yardstick for the hike in increase in tariff? Again, can the government be able to intervene by providing a succor, by some form of subsidies for Nigerians at this point in time, knowing fully well that a lot of things have gone up in the market. When the price of fuel went up the last time, we saw a lot of things also skyrocketed in the country. And except we want to tell ourselves a lie, but then the reality, when we're confronted with the reality on ground, we know that the cost of food items you got last year wasn't regular. You might get to the market right now and they tell you that it's being sold for 10 naira. You come back the next day, you buy, and you come back, you're buying for the sum of maybe 20 naira, 15 naira.
Right.
Same thing with gadgets. By the time you buy a gadget today for a very funny price, you go back to the market tomorrow and you're buying for something mind-blowing and you're asking, excuse me, I bought this thing from you yesterday, and the guy is telling you, sir, tariff has gone up.
And then tells you dollar,
the exchange rate is something to write, or nothing to write home about.
Right.
So let's begin to have this conversation. Can we begin to do what they did, what the government did with the tax reform policy? When people started saying, hey, you can't, especially within the northern region, say, hey, you can't give us this. You can't go tax reform on us. The policy, it doesn't make sense right now. What the Federal Inland Revenue and also other governmental agencies now started doing was that they started putting these languages in best way people could understand. They went as far as translating these languages to even local dialects and even pidgin, the Nigerian local English. And we saw that play out, and a lot of people now, when governors reconverged, they bought into the idea. And you saw governors telling you, hey, we give our approvals to this, which we saw in the last Nigerian Governors Forum meeting. Of course, they gave a nod to it because now they've understood what this is. Nigerians are not dumb. Nigerians are very smart people. Nigerians are intelligent people. And when you joke with the intelligence of Nigeria, you see Nigerians coming out to tell you, hey, we are not dumb. We know what we're doing. So I think at this point in time, the NCC has a lot of work to do. Firstly, to go back and do a reorientation program, send the message back to Nigerians that this is why we are increasing the tariff. If possible, explain it in their local dialect and let Nigerians begin to understand what they are in for. Now, because what Nigerians are now afraid of is, just like we're saying that 1 naira right now is, let's not say it has gone into extinction. Let's just say we can no longer see them.
It's on holiday.
After the pouring or what? It's an holiday. But we don't see 1 naira right now. It doesn't hold value. Same thing with your kobo. Your kobos don't hold values, except we don't want to talk about it. But the truth is, if we begin to look at all of these things and have that conversations around it, and the NCC begin to do their homework and drive the message through to local communities, first Nigerians will have this confidence that, hey, we're not trying to exploit you. We're not trying to cheat you. We're not trying to rob you of your hard-earned currencies. And these are the fears that Nigerians are being confronted with. Until we begin to look out for ways to mitigate those fears that Nigerians have been confronted with, I think that the NCC, the Nigerian Labour Congress might not just protest. The protests might be hijacked from the Nigerian protests and the Nigerian Labour Congress, and Nigerians in local, in remote communities will begin to protest and call for more measures, if possible, for us to look for other ways to communicate other than sticking with some of the service providers.
It sounds a bit tough at this point, but we had a guest here in the course of the week, someone who is a long-standing expert in the telecom sector, right? And we had this exact conversation from an all-angle perspective. And one of the things he did say was, is it not curious, is it not interesting that once telecoms operators, the service providers sneeze. The NCC catches cold, and the NCC responds almost immediately. The NCC swings into action. The NCC shows support and solidarity. But to what extent and on how many occasions has it been the case that subscribers lodged complaints and the NCC took concrete, decisive steps to address those issues? For example, you just talked about a particular section of the NCC Act that gives some level of latitude to the operators, the service providers, to be able to make some adjustments with regards to tariffs. However, isn't it also fair to say, let's cite some portions or provisions of the acts that establishes the NCC that supports the interests or protects the interests of the subscriber? That's very important as well, because life is about equilibrium at some point, especially as it has to do with an issue of public interest, such as telecommunications services. The long and short of the story is that it will appear as of today, from what we see, from what we know, particularly in light of these telecom tariff, tariff hike that we're now discussing, there's little protection for service, consumers, as against what you have in favor of those who provide these services. It raises the question, maybe some sort of thesis should be written about this, if not already the case, about how that our regulatory frameworks don't appear to have been put in place to serve the overall interest of the person who enjoys the services. Instead, it's more like a provision or some sort of, if you like, frameworks put in place in the interest of the bourgeois. And if that's the case, it raises the question again of at what point will Nigerians enjoy the benefits that come with proper regulation? We've seen the CBN, just to deviate for a second, try to show example in that regard. For instance, one of the most recent instances is when there was this paucity of cash being dispensed from the ATM terminals. I mean, people go to their ATM terminals, even the terminals of their own banks, they can't access cash. Money is not available, it's not dispensing. But the guy who operates a POS business by the corner has 100,000, has $500,000 to give to you. Sharp notes, mint. And people are asking, if I can't go to bank XYZ, which is my bank, I mean their own ATM terminal, to access cash, the money I worked for legitimately and deposited in this bank, who is going to explain to me the reason the lady who operates an ATM terminal a few posts away has all the cash in her bag that she crosses over? You see, that is conspiracy apparently. So the CBN is trying to see how to dismantle that structure itself, because it's detrimental, it's inimical. But that's a huge call. Why? We understand that the bulk of the people behind these ATM terminals, I mean these POS businesses, are within the banking sector. Yeah. They are in the finance space. So if that's the case, how do you reverse the damage that's being done to Nigerians from that end? So it's just a potpourri of problems that we need to keep talking about until those whom we have saddled with the responsibility of fixing these problems respond adequately. We're taking a break, everyone. When we return, we'll talk about a few other things, this time more from human angle perspective. Do stay with us.
Global Morning is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and internationals.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Mondays to Sundays to a wide range of the latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest.
The president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning.
You're welcome back. It's Global Morning on Global Television, and this is the second segment of the program, Global Morning. And right here, I am with Godwin Sunday. How are you doing, Godwin?
Great.
You met with Uye, now you're meeting with me first time on the program. How are you doing?
Great. You're looking great.
Oh, thank you. I get that a lot. So.
Okay.
All right. At this point, we'll be looking at the second segment when it comes to the second topic of the day. And in a quest, or will I say in a bid for quick wealth, some individuals have decided to go into ritual killing. Some have killed their girlfriends, allegedly. Some have actually sacrificed their mothers, family members in a quest, in a bid for quick money in our society. A lot has played out. Sometimes here in Abuja, 3 weeks ago, we heard of a musician. I would not call him a gospel singer, because if he was really a gospel singer, he knows the things that has to do. Timileyin Ajayi, we've heard about Timileyin Ajayi, who the alleged gospel singer who actually killed his girlfriend, quote unquote, which some people say wasn't his girlfriend. There are a lot of controversies surrounding that. But what happened, of of course, in Ekiti and in some other places. Not just that, we get that in places like Edo, Lagos, where in a bid for quick money, a lot of people go into some very dubious, very gruesome act in order for quick wealth. And would you say that is where we have found ourselves in Nigeria due to the economy, due to the fact that there's inflation when it comes to fuel, the up and down when it comes to fuel, the up and down when it comes to food insecurity, the up and down when it comes to unemployment, the high electricity tariff? What is your quest when it comes to issues like that? Will we justify this particular act? Of course not, because we know that there are other ways in which you can actually make good, lovely means of livelihood. All right, like I said, I'm being joined by Godwin Sunday at about this point, talking about the fast rising quest for quick money, and we see that a lot, right, Godwin?
Yeah.
A lot of people have gone into dubious means, and of course you wonder and you sit back to yourself and say, why is it so clean? Like the one of Timileyin now, I always reflect back to it. When you listen to his song, it was such a clean cut. The way he did it was very clean. He didn't look like an amateur, like someone who has, it's just me saying now. I don't think that was his first time, but people who actually do this sort of things by committing these gruesome acts, really, would we say the economy has a big toll on this, or the economy has a part to play in this particular issue?
All right, so Jumai, let's take the conversation first from the angle of from a societal angle. So I think the first things first is that society is beginning to lose its grip on morals. That is the foundation of it. Now, the thing is, recall that when you were growing up, if you come back home with a huge amount of money, your parents will first of all ask you, hey, Juma, where did you get this from? But that's rhetoric is beginning to change. That narrative is changing. Now what we see is, we'll see teenagers coming back home with huge sum of money, and parents begin to dance. Now parents even go as far as telling their children, don't you see how your mates, what your mates are doing to make ends meet? Don't you see what your mates are doing in order to meet up certain responsibilities? Now we now see teenagers right now show that in the responsibility of taking care of their homes.
And parents, don't forget.
Okay, let's say teenagers are co-parenting with their parents.
Very true.
So that is where the challenge, before we now move even further to other cadre of conversation, taking it from the society first, looking at it, when you give birth to a child in the West, if you're from any part of the West, they have this notion that the child belongs to the community.
True.
That is, if a child does what is wrong, the community have a right to discipline that child. But that narrative again has moved. Right now, if you have a child, even if the teacher in a school decide to discipline that child, we've seen parents that will go to the school and arrest the teachers and tell them words like, "No be you born am for me." And we've seen this play out, not once, not twice. We've also moved the conversation a bit to the economy. Before we now talk about the quest to get rich quick. Before we talk about those quests, let's come back to the economy. We'll look at the economy from one angle, the government policies, the government's actions and inactions are not friendly. That is, we do PPP, but I think we need to do more PPPP. Make the P's to be full. No longer public-private partnership. We need to do a public-private partnership and participation. Because what we do in the country is that we come up with policies, government come up with agendas, and we don't get to talk to the people. For example, in a village in Abuja called Nunkuchi, after Papi, we have a lot of those kind of remote villages.
Yes, we do,
in Abuja. And you want to build a solar system for them. You want to put solar street lights for them.
Basic amenities.
Basic amenities. So what they do is you engage the community. You engage the leaders. Say, hey, you have a choice. Should we give you street lights or we should give you water? What do you want? The community leader goes back to his people and asks them, the government want to give us basics. Basic things. What do you want? The women will say, okay, we want light. The youth will say, okay, we want light. Because we can get water anywhere. But we come in late in the night and everywhere is dark. We think the light will work for us. But you see, once that happens, it will be difficult for somebody to go and pull that street light down. Because it was a unanimous agreement. The question is, what the government does for Nigerians. How many times do the government engage Nigerians to know what they really want, to be able to align what they want to the implementation of what has been proposed? So because we don't have all of those things going for us, it now brings us to a situation where we have a lot of vandalism going here and there. Now let's come back to the get rich quick scheme. Now, it is sad. It is sad reality. Every day you turn to the papers, you tune to the radio. Of course, for journalists like myself and yourself, we get to talk about these things every day. And sometimes for journalists that cannot even talk about it, they are traumatized with some of those things. Imagine you to be the one to cover that particular report on Timilei, and you watch a girl that was massacred, and you watch you have to do all of those examinations, and you go back home, you're traumatized. It is sad. If we want to use the right word, it is really sad. But what is the cause of all of those things? We blame the government, we blame the parents. Now, the typical cause of this is largely tied to greed.
Not the economy.
No, the economy has its own role to play. It has its own negative, but largely it is greed. A lot of young people right now have this mindset that, hey, I want to buy Lamborghini tomorrow morning. And of course, you know, like I know, that for you to get a Lamborghini, you need to have worked out some certain amount of money. You must have a very similar amount of money. You must have been able to save, have a running investment, because the Lamborghini will not maintain itself. It will maintain itself. If you buy an E-Class, if you buy a Benz, the Benz will maintain itself. Of course, somebody will maintain a G-Wagon. It won't maintain itself. So when you begin to aspire for some of those things and you don't have a job, you begin to aspire for this kind of lifestyle and you don't have any savings anywhere. You begin to aspire for this kind of lifestyle and you don't even have anything to show for it. Now,
so you can't even eat 3 square meals a day.
You even call it 3 square, you should even start with 2. So, but when all of those begin to play out, you now see scenarios where we now begin to say, hey, you begin to ask questions. How can are there back doors? Are there doors I can follow that is not the right door?
But wait a minute, Godwin, I think before you start asking these questions, you have friends who have, I think that's where it starts from. Aside all of these examples, which is in tandem with what we're talking about. But I think once you have friends who are in this lifestyle, that's when you start asking questions. How did you acquire so much wealth? Because I know where you're coming from. I know you. I know how we all started. So I'm surprised you are driving a Lamborghini and you're displaying money up about. So I think that's where you ask your friend.
Necessity is the mother of all invention. You know, necessity is just once the need arises, once you begin to ask salient questions, you get answers. For those of us of the Christian proclivity who will say that ask and you shall receive. So it's a simple analogy. Once a teenager or a young person begins to be eaten up by greed, automatically what plays out, it begins to ask questions.
Well, and then, aside being eaten up by greed, Godwin, don't you think pressure from home has a lot to play in this aspect? When someone wants to get rich quick, when, let's say, he's the first child of the family, and there are some circumstances whereby parents actually go through a lot to train one child, and you know what it is now, the economy, and the woman, the parents have gone through a lot when it comes to, you are like the eye of the family. Now we're training you in order for you to take care of your younger ones. We're training you to make our lives better. There are some people that have that sort of weight on their shoulders, and you think the home front has nothing to play, or let's say the family background and all of these pressures encompass altogether playing this role for a child to quickly say, I'll damn all I'll damn the consequences, and I'll just do what it takes, even if it means taking a life.
But Juma, we've seen people that also grew up from a very interesting background. They didn't have a lot of money. They didn't have a lot of connection, and they were also put under this kind of pressure, like you've mentioned. But they started selling bag of pure water,
sachet water,
a bag. Before you know what was going on, they multiplied one bag to two.
Very true.
And all of a sudden, they started having a truckload of distributions, starting from nothing. So people can even say, okay, give me your water, let me sell, and I will give you back the capital and take my profit out of it.
At the end of the day.
We've seen people that move from pushing wheelbarrows in the market to start doing other great things for themselves. We've read stories, and we've listened to stories of people that have been able to do a lot of things based on little resources that they have. So what I'm saying, I'm tying this to greed is, if you know that success is a journey, you walk the way and you walk the path.
Now, how many people actually believe that success is a journey? Some people say that it's time wasting. When I can get money at the snap of some, aside get rich quick saga, when it comes to taking a life, which is not justifiable in any way. I do not support it in any way. Some do the cybercrime, Yahoo, we see that. Some actually go out, some believe prostitution is key, forget education. You see a lot of our girls, Nigerian girls, who travel to Dubai and do all sorts just to get that money. Now, I think that is where we have found ourselves now when it comes to individuals who do not want to work hard. Back in the day when I was in the university, I knew a girl who didn't have parents. She said her uncle was the one that was actually funding her education. And then do you know what she will do? She'll wake up in the morning, she'll prepare buns, she'll make zobo, and then she'll make hair. I was always patronizing her, because she'll say, okay, her first lecture is 10. Juma, if you're going to come, please, can you come as early as 7:30, because I need to prepare. But we were all her friends. We wanted to support her, so we'll be there. Some will be there 7 o'clock, 6:30, if we do not have lectures, of course, in the morning, and then we'll pay for that service. I think that was back in the day. But now, with television, with entertainment, we see some of these celebrities who come out and make it look as if, hey, you don't have to struggle. You don't have to stress yourself. With a snap of a finger, you can make a lot of money at a snap of a finger. There are easy shortcuts to this, but not actually telling you the implications to shortcut wealth. I think the society, like you have mentioned, the society, but individuals in society has a serious role to play into mating the young ones, the youth. Why working hard is key. We have forgotten all of that now. Like I said, the fast route is the way to go. Forgetting that such monies do not last. It does not. There's always a consequence behind it. Taking a life is something that is it's very severe. But people don't look at it as anything now, because we see what is ongoing. People get away with a lot of crime. Uyi said something. He says, people think there is no law in Nigeria till you find yourself in that web where you realize that there is law, that law is bound in a country.
You will know that chapter 4 of the Nigerian Constitution talks about fundamental human rights.
Yes, it does.
You will also know that section 33 of the Nigerian Constitution gives rights to right to life.
Right to
you
life.
will also know that if you're in the southern part of Nigeria, you will know that there's something in section 315 of the Nigerian Criminal Code that talks about the right to also life. So that's where, so for me, I still think again that, that's why I align my thought with yours. I think it is very, very sad to find the people that want to murder your fellow human being in order to make ends meet. I think that is a sad reality.
It's a very sad reality because it's something that we can talk about this all over again and again, because it's, a lot of families have lost children because of, it's just like I read on the paper, was it 3 months ago, how teenagers actually killed their friend because the herbalist, in quote and unquote, told them they needed the boys' parts for them. Teenager, what are you thinking about? It's supposed to be in school. It's very important that, this is where we found ourselves in Nigeria, and I hope definitely the law will definitely take its course. Let's quickly go on a very quick break, and then we'll continue with the program. Stay tuned, do not go anywhere, and yes, it's Global Morning.
Global Morning is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and international.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Mondays to Sundays to a wide range of the latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest.
The president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning.
Global Morning is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and international.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Mondays to Sundays to a wide range of the latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest.
The president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning.
Welcome back. Now we'll take you to the next story, and right now we're looking at the NYSC conversation where the DG of the NYSC have come out to say that beginning from tomorrow, the 1st of February, that core members will begin to collect their 77,000 naira alawi, as it's popularly called. This is due to the fact that the new proposed 77,000 has been captured in the 2025 budget, and hopefully it will be approved by February, and of course implementation will follow as soon as possible. But then it is like the second time we are hearing that this implementation of the 77,000 naira alawi to core members. The last time we had this was around June, where we thought it would have even been fully implemented in the supplementary budget that was passed by the Tinubu-led administration, but we didn't see that happen. Instead, we've seen other things play out. But then let me bring the conversation to the studio right now and to Jumai. Let's even look at this NYSC policy of 77,000 naira proposed minimum wage or alawi to core members. Now, the law, they said, is not retrospective now, but when we look at all of this policy put together by the NYSC in terms of saying you want to give core members. Now, question is, how will the implementation strategy look like? People that are batch A, batch B, batch C are already in the system.
Yes.
I'm thinking, trying to wrap my head around that. At this point, will they shut down the NYSC payment system and be able to backdate it to reflect the current state of the payment? Or what modalities would they put in place to ensure that people don't, the outgoing set won't feel bad that they didn't benefit from the system? I'm trying to wrap my head around all of this, but because it's a welcome development.
Yes, it is. To contribute to that, well, it is, like you mentioned, it is a welcome development due to the economic hardship in which we find ourselves. Basically, what can you do with, with the form, the amount that we're collecting before? Like, at least 77,000 is not much, but at least it's something. And talking about other core members, well, that is it. It happened like that. From predecessors, there have always been an increment like that, and some people benefited, some people did not. So it's still in.
You're making it sound like it's normal. But probably we need to backtrack our service here,
Why?
No, for the alawi to be complete.
No. Let's forget about it. No, truly, but at least it's a welcome development, like you have mentioned. You cannot backtrack it. NYSC, National Youth Service Corps, it's for goodness sake, it's for everyone to be enlightened, to get you prepared for the labor market. So if it happens that way, it's just.
But now that it has regularized itself to begin to pay 77,000 naira, which is the minimum wage.
Yes, exactly.
I think they should also make provision for people to serve for 2 years.
Why?
And you know.
No, 1 year is fine. 1 year is fine.
No, 2 years it's still fair.
No,
when you finish doing one, you don't get a job. You still serve.
Why?
Perhaps.
No. Some people would say. Some people are forced to even serve. Some do not even want. It's just a criteria that they have to actually accomplish. For that, well, I just feel, well, it's luck. If you're not a partaker, it doesn't matter. Don't worry, your children will be partakers or your siblings. But at the same time, it's a welcome development for those who will be getting the 77,000. It's long overdue. This is last year we're talking about, and now it has lingered to this time. So please, let it kickstart, let it hit the ground and start running. If you benefit, fine, all well and good. Take it with good faith. You're in Nigeria, and be patriotic. Don't worry, God will compensate you with a bigger and better job. So move on. Let's move on.
So speaking of NYSC, the DG also made mention of the issues around security, that core members that will not longer be posted to security threatening zones.
Yes, exactly.
Is going to affect
which
them.
is good.
But yeah, it is a welcome development.
It's a welcome development, because we've heard some core members, I don't want to mention names, but as we speak in Abuja, there were some that were actually going to their the place of assignment, and they were actually abducted on the road. And after a year, where their fellow corps members had graduated, they were just being released. There were some who were brought into the barracks, and all of that. We saw that played out. It's just unfortunate that all these threat zones, I think it should be avoided completely, because we have security agents who are still trying to curb the menace of insecurity. So all of these places like the northeast, basically Maiduguri, Borno, call it, although there are threats everywhere, but there are some core areas which should be avoided completely. Because
So I'm thinking, what can there be a kind of a program? No, not on the sport per se. Can there be a program from the NYSC where, imagine the 3 weeks and all the fitness training that you went through and all of that. Can there be a program where core members can be reabsorbed into the Nigerian security system so that we can expand the frontiers and be able to solve security issues once and for all?
For me, I think, that is a rigorous training. Let me give you an instance. Like, if you're going to be absorbed into this sort of thing, like in the army, I know there's a 6 months. You have to go to rigorous, serious training, 6 months, and 3 weeks is not enough for you to get all of that.
That's the beginning.
Okay, let's say the basics. I feel to protect yourself, but I think we'll leave this for another day. But seriously, 3 weeks, it's a really short time. But at this point, we have to wrap it up on the program Global Morning. And Uyag Mofegwe has been on the program. Of course, Godwin Sunday. Yes, Godwin Sunday has been on the program. He's one face that you will be seeing from time to time. I am Jumai Manson. Thank you all so much for being a part of Global Morning today. And, it's a wrap, right, Godwin?
Yeah, it is a wrap.
It's a wrap. So have an amazing day ahead. Godwin, let's say bye-bye together.
Bye.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call the police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
The struggle as to strike.
The Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.